Okay. So I was reflecting earlier today that thinking can often get in the way and that reflecting is potentially a little bit different to thinking. So I was kind of thinking, well, when am I in flow and kind of getting deeper about something? And when am I just thinking round and round habitually and not making any progress? And so I was having a chat with Sandy. So if you're watching, Sandy, thanks for giving me that tip. But we didn't quite get to the end of that conversation. So yeah, that seems like an interesting one to spend 5 minutes exploring.
Would you like one or Jen or myself?
Oh, I get to choose. I'll go with Jen as she started speaking there, and then yeah, thanks.
Cool. So very briefly, what
Mm.
where did you get to with that pondering about the difference there?
Mm. I think what I got to is that sometimes it's helpful to think intentionally and have a bit of space to wonder about something, and you get further with it. And I would almost categorize that as being in flow, whereas other times there's just background noise and it's the same topic going round and round, and yeah, probably easy to get stuck in that. And I suppose the question could almost be, how might I better recognize one versus the other? Because that seems like an interesting thing to see.
Very cool. I was just about to ask you how you knew the difference between the two.
Hmm. Well, one definitely came up with new information. The other was the same old story. But I definitely saw a lot of stuff on repeat. So yeah, there was a slight difference there, but I don't know in the time whether I was just stuck in it. I wonder how much time I wasted being stuck in that.
And you mentioned time there. Does that seem an important element to it?
Well, I guess I have some things that I'd like to make progress on that seem to be habitual thinking. So time was important in that I was trying to move forwards more quickly.
Because I was just wondering there about how much of the expectations about how fast something should take, whether there was some thinking of that around that, muddying the waters, so to speak, or whether that's just me that does that.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point, I think. I suspect there is some noise that's playing out. I know Noki's before has talked about these different records. I liked that illustration that might be playing in our head. I suspect that there is a record going, oh, we're on this topic, we've still not solved it yet. And I wonder thinking out loud actually when I was more intentional, thought, oh, I'm going to go and have a look at something new here. Set myself a timer and thought, I'm going to write lots of ideas down. But because I was intentional, yeah, that background track perhaps wasn't playing. So yeah, I like that question.
Mm. It's one of the ways I can trip myself up with expectations about how quickly I should be coming up with answers with, which just gets my head even busier. And there's a feel to that when I do it. I don't always spot the feeling quite as quickly as I'd like, which is ironic considering I'm talking about thinking around how quick things should take. But yeah, it's for me, it's noticing the feelings about what it's pointing towards.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder the two things do feel different.
Mm.
Like one feels a bit more stressful, the other one feels more curious, and we probably talked on these calls before about how when we wonder or about curious about something, how usually more answers come then.
Mm. So what do you make of that?
Well, I think we were saying just before we came live about how it's interesting to see sometimes how we get in our own way and how we get out of our own way. And yeah, what's interesting, I think, from this little segment is there's a different feel to each of those. Like, wouldn't it be wonderful to think, oh, this doesn't feel good. Maybe I'm getting in my own way.
Yeah, and I think it can be that simple if we let it be.
Yeah.
The end of our 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.